Imagine you've just had, like, the most fantastic first date. Sparks are flying, you were excited about the future, the conversation was totally effortless. And right as you're saying goodnight, your date whips out a clipboard, shines a bright desk lamp right in your face, and demands, your last 10 years of bank statements and a full criminal record check.
Oh, man. You immediately go from like a valued partner to a prime suspect. It completely shatters the illusion.
Right. It totally ruins it. And welcome to today's deep dive. We've gathered a stack of HR compliance guidelines, legal frameworks, and recruitment case studies to look at the standard staff background check. Because usually this is just viewed as a mandatory compliance chore, just a legal box you check between the offer letter and day one.
Yeah, that is definitely the traditional mindset for HR teams.
But our mission today is to explore how treating these checks merely as a legal obligation actually creates a massive operational cost. I mean, you are losing great candidates right at the finish line. So I want you to take a second to consider how your own onboarding process might be unintentionally eroding trust before a new hire even starts.
We see this happen constantly, honestly. Companies spend immense resources sourcing talent only to, put them through a ringer that signals total distrust right at the very end.
So why do these candidates actually drop out? Because looking at the case studies in our sources, it rarely seems like HR teams are uh, actively trying to make things difficult.
No, it's rarely malicious. It is usually just the accumulation of small, poor process decisions. And I'd say the most common one is the copy-paste mentality.
What do you mean by that?
Well, an HR team will take a single, dense, legalese-heavy background check form and just reuse it for absolutely everyone in the pipeline. Which creates a massive disconnect. Running the exact same screening process for, say, a junior accountant and a senior finance director who has direct access to the corporate treasury that just doesn't make sense.
Exactly. It's confusing for the candidate, and it actually creates blind spots for the company. And then you add the timing issue on top of that.
Right, the timing issue.
Yeah, many organizations ask for highly sensitive personal data right after extending a verbal offer, but before providing a written contract. So the candidate is left in this vulnerable limbo where they have no actual guarantee of employment, but they are handing over their entire life history.
I have to push back for a second, though. Are candidates just, I don't know, being overly sensitive here? I mean, getting a job requires vetting. Is a clunky form really a genuine red flag about how a company treats its people? Candidates definitely read it that way. You have to remember, the background check is often the very first formal administrative interaction an employee has with their new company. If that process is opaque and feels disproportionate, top talent assumes, well, that is how the company handles everything else.
Wow, okay. And that friction isn't just an optics problem either. When we look at the privacy frameworks in our sources, taking that one-size-fits-all approach actually falls apart under EU law.
Oh, absolutely. Under GDPR, relying purely on consent for employment background checks is highly problematic. The regulators actually recognize a massive power imbalance between an employer and a candidate.
Because your livelihood is on the line, right?
Right. When your livelihood is on the line, you can't freely consent to a massive data sweep. You need a much more defensible legal basis.
Which means companies have to rely on different mechanisms to justify the data collection.
Precisely. You have to map the specific check to a specific legal justification. So you're looking at bases like the performance of a contract under GDPR Article 6, Paragraph 1, letter B.
Right, or I think the sources mentioned a specific legal obligation under Article 6, Paragraph 1, letter C, or legitimate interest under letter F.
Yes, exactly. You cannot just request a criminal record extract because you want to do, like, general due diligence.
And doing that without a specific legal authorization actually violates GDPR Article 10, right?
It does. The law requires you to justify the specific need.
To put that in perspective for you, asking for a software developer's financial credit history is like asking a customer to hand over their driver's license just to buy a loaf of bread. I mean, the request is completely disproportionate to the transaction.
We call that the principle of data minimization. You have to design your checks strictly around the actual tangible risks of a specific role, rather than what is just administratively convenient for HR to process.
Okay, so let's say a company does this correctly. They minimize the data, they link it to the right legal basis under Article 6, and they run the check. Where does that candidate data actually go? Because reading through the compliance guidelines, it often seems to just, I don't know, disappear into a black hole.
Indefinite storage is actually one of the most common compliance gaps we see. Keeping candidate data forever is illegal. Employers have to build compliance directly into their workflows by defining strict retention policies.
Meaning, like, actual automated deletion schedules.
Yes, if you don't hire a candidate, your system should automatically delete their verification data within a set time frame.
Hmm,
30 days is a very common defensible standard. It shouldn't require someone to manually purge a database 5 years later.
that makes sense. There's also the black hole of communication during the wait itself. Candidates are sitting there for weeks wondering if they, failed the background check or if HR simply forgot about them.
Oh, the silence is the worst part. A basic automated status update would completely eliminate that anxiety,
Right.
which also brings up the process for handling discrepancies. If you find a red flag in the data, you cannot legally or ethically just reject the candidate and ghost them.
Wait, really? You have to tell them.
Yes. They must be given a clear opportunity to review the findings and explain or correct the record before you make a final employment decision.
Building a compliant and candidate-friendly process doesn't actually seem like an oxymoron when you break it down like this. It really just requires transparency, plain language, and checks that actually fit the role.
Exactly. It establishes respect as the baseline for the entire employment relationship.
I love that. Well, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. If your background check process was the absolute only thing a candidate knew about your company's culture, would they still want to work for you?